Good morning, or good afternoon, I guess. Good morning.
Good morning.
I think we will be, dear ladies and gentlemen, I'm very sorry, we are resuming. And we are moving now to our next session, to one of the parallel sessions. This is EFMI session. That is going to be hosted and moderated by our colleague from European Federation for Medical Informatics, Professor Lars. And thank you very much, Lars, for taking over this and for moderating this session. I'm basically handing it over to you, and please, the floor is yours. And thank you very much also, my dear colleagues from EFMI. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, John. Thank you, all colleagues who are joining this session. And please, Lars, take over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Georgie. It's a pleasure to be back at the Digital Health Day. We were last year with an EFMI session, and we really enjoyed to be a part of it this year again. Today, we will discuss a little bit about to know what is to know, how and why informatics is needed more than ever. And we're actually following up our special topic conference that we had in Cardiff earlier this year. And as you all know, the repetition is the mother of knowledge, as we say in Sweden. I guess you say that everywhere. And we feel very responsible from the European Federation of Medical Informatics to continue to work to educate and bring a good quality to students and institutions when it comes to understanding the usage of informatics in this area. But just for fun, I will share this image with you also. And you all recognize these words, I guess. We talk a lot about in healthcare, about innovation, about creativity, on concepts, business process and everything. But me, coming from radiology, I love images. And when I found this image, the barge howlers on Volga from 1873, I realized this was an image of healthcare in Europe today. It's a heavy burden we are all dragging now. And the only thing we have time to say is that we must be more people that help us to drag the burden. But the interesting thing is a young man in the middle of the image that has seen something that nobody else has seen. And if you look further back in the image on the right side, you can see the steamboat. So actually the steamboat is telling him that whatever he's doing today, he can probably do in a totally different way tomorrow. And that's the feeling I see very much when it comes to how technology now is here to help us to change the way we are doing healthcare. And therefore, informatics is so important. And the thing we will talk about today is that how to change the education to be a howler, to be the one that is running the steamboat. So what we see from EFMI side is actually that we will have a lot more emphasis on cure and care, and we will also have on heal and deal. So we are combining, more people are interested in working with healthcare. And something we see in the whole of Europe, that we are actually, as healthcare professionals, we are opening up to involve the patient even more. And when it comes to what they produce in kind of data, we see obviously that they are producing much more data than before. And our challenge is to understand how we can use it in our professionalism to serve them from the healthcare perspective. Today, we see also when we look at the European Union, you know, we only have around 3% of the whole world market. US is the biggest one. And you have probably heard about and been discussing during Digital Health Day also the European health data space and the approaches we are trying to do from Europe to be better in this area also. And we all think that the European biggest opportunities is trust and security, obviously. And that's something that we will continue to focus on and work on, to have the trust for the citizens and also to see that they can share information in a secure way with high personal integrity. So if I look ahead, I can see that education in informatics seems to be the glue that support the transformation. And in a way, I think the focus, at least in Sweden, as I can see it, is that everyone is talking about we need more people with the understanding of informatics. So therefore, I'm very happy to have this session today and share this session with Professor Kaija Saranto that will give us an update of international education recommendations in biomedical and health informatics. I'm happy to have Mrs. Katrin Kronaki that talks about initiative to support the digital transformation in the case of HL7 and fire. I'm also happy to have Professor John Mantas that will discuss the ASIC2 initiative, the accreditation academic programs. You know, it's always important for the trust that we have a trustworthy view of it. So accreditation is a good way of that. And we will end our session by a discussion about the European international collaboration and shared learning, why this is so crucial at this time, by Dr. Judy Croxall. And between 12:50 to 13, we will have a short wrap up. So with that, I would like to say welcome to Professor Kaija, and I will stop sharing and see if we can see your images. So please, Kaija. Do we need to give any access to Professor Kaija? Perfect, I can see your screen, Kaija. But if you can put it in presentation mode also.
Professor Kaija, do you hear us? Professor Kaija, you are muted.
Yes, Kaija, you have to unmute also.
Is it now okay?
Now I can hear you. And if you just put the presentation in presentation mode also, I will be very satisfied.
I'm doing it, but obviously there is some problem.
Yeah, but we can run this way also.
Okay.
Everyone see the images, so please.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the presentation, and I'm really happy to be and present this new update on international education recommendations in biomedical and health informatics. And I think that in this situation, I also represent the EFMI Working Group for Education. I come from Finland, as already you heard, and I represent University of Eastern Finland, where I work as a professor in health and human services informatics. And I am really pleased to tell you that I have really benefited from these recommendations in early on already. Here you can see the older ones. The first version of the recommendations was published in 1999, and the the first revision in 2011. And now we have the second revision, and I'm really happy to tell you that these have just been launched in the International Journal of Medical Informatics, and here you can see even the link to the publication and also the huge list of authors, experts behind these recommendations. So this was really an international work.
Kaya, excuse me, Kaya, we can't see that you're changing images.
Oh, so is it possible that you share?
Now it changed. Perfect.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
looking at image number 5 now.
Okay, I go back, and now it's 4. Okay.
4, perfect.
Okay, so the huge number of experts behind this is really an international group, and you can also understand that this was a very long journey to really reach the consensus, and that's why we are so happy that we now have the recommendations. And this is partly also the content of the recommendations, because they are provided for course and course tracks in biomedical and health informatics as part of educational programs. And also the educational needs are described for roles of biomedical and health informatics user, generalist, specialist across 6 domain areas like the biomedical and health informatics core principles. And these 6 principles are health sciences and services, computer, data and information sciences, social and behavioral sciences, management science, and biomedical and health informatics specialization. And the recommendations for mainstream academic programs in biomedical and health informatics at the level of bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees are also described. And of course, in this kind of document, it is also important that we have something for continuing education, certification, and also for accreditation procedures. Biomedical and health informatics is an interdisciplinary science, and you can see all these sciences which combine or are related to disciplines. And whatever part of this circle you represent, I think it's crucial to bring your expertise also to these other disciplines. The educational needs are described for the roles like the biomedical and health user, generalist and specialist. And also I mentioned the core principles. And in the next slide, you can here see how these roles are combined with the different kind of degrees. And what is very important is here that there is like non-biomedical and health informatics disciplines, which are like separate sciences, although they bring their own expertise to the different users as well. The roles, for instance, like in the previous recommendations, they only identified 2 roles, like IT user and biomedical and health informatics specialist. But now this current version of recommendations also proposed like 3 roles, user, generalist and specialist. And you can soon understand why it's important that there is also the user level and then the most important perhaps the generalist and specialist. And it is also widely acknowledged that many countries have varying terminology of these roles, because it was heavily discussed also during this development process that countries may vary in many ways in terms of also health care context. So who is the user? And in the recommendation, you can see that it will in biomedical and health informatics from those disciplines, and that deliver healthcare and use of information systems to enter, store, and retrieve and analyze data. So in a way, we can say that this is very basic area. And the education is mainly at an introductory level, comprising the fundamental topics of the knowledge domains. And it should be also included in every healthcare workforce curriculum, so that all those who work in healthcare context should have this kind of knowledge. And I think currently it's still quite a challenge in healthcare in many countries. So what should the user need to? He or she should have the familiarity with personal computers, text processing, and software, spreadsheet software. So in a way, when you see this list, you can see that this is very basic knowledge areas. And still, I think that it's very, they for sure have these kind of competencies. They also need knowledge about possibilities and limitations of IT, and also to be able to use ICT efficiently and effectively. So like we say that they should have these hands-on experiences. And the goals are achieved, for example, by at introductory level, or integrating mandatory aspects of biomedical and health informatics into existing subject. And then we have the generalist, and who you can see that it goes further in terms of knowledge areas, and it can be also like non-biomedical and health informatics disciplines, or they have further the main area like intermediate level. I go a little bit more because I can see that you also have possibilities now to read and have access to this document. So the generalists demonstrate capability in eliciting clinical user needs, and what is important, I think, these verbs like advising, developing, and implementing, and evaluating. So in a way, you can see that they are more higher knowledge levels. And they also need knowledge about application and impact of emerging technologies on health services. And these can be achieved by a set of complementary courses, also in biomedical health subject. And then the specialist, which are learners from postgraduate level, and the education is at advanced level. And you can see also that it has a lot of content areas, and it always refers to specialization, and it can be either nursing informatics, dental informatics, public health informatics, health and human services informatics, and further on. And you can see also that there are very demanding verbs like developing new methods and conducting research. And these goals can be achieved by learners receiving master or doctoral degrees. Then there is recommendations for courses or course tracks in biomedical health informatics as a part of educational programs. And here you can see different kind of possibilities in which they can be combined. And here is the important figure about the 6 domains, which are helping, I think, mostly educators at least to compile the curricula for students. And the learning content comprises a general overview, and then it should give like also about the knowledge about the context, for especially those who have a background in computer science. And additionally, they should like use different kind of tools and technologies, and especially focus on standards and terminologies. And here are the very helpful figures, so that you can see how this can be used to generate the curricula, and you can see the program time, length, and level, and the core knowledge and skill areas divided into percentages. We have also recommendations for degree programs, and here you can see the possibility how these percentages are presented in master degree level, also divided into these 6 content areas. The continuing education part is like, I think this is also something which varies between the country, but it should aim to acquire sufficient competence in biomedical and health informatics from academic, educational, or practical perspective. And there should be like specific knowledge, skills, and roles within the health industry. And also it is recommended about those who have different kind of position in practice, they should take these continuing education courses. And then the recommendations also support program and courses, but also accreditation, and it can be seen how it can be applied from the EMEA website, and there is also EFMI website, and especially IC2 website. And also there are a lot of possibilities to see help from international programs and also international exchange of learners and teachers. And in terms of accreditation, I'm really pleased to show this figure because as I mentioned in the beginning, I have really, and my program has really benefited from these recommendations, and it was a really success to pass this accreditation process based on the EMEA accreditation. And here you can see my happy face with the previous EMEA president, Chris Lehman. So thank you for your attention, and I really apologize about these technical issues with my laptop. Thank you.
About the technical issues.
Professor Kathy, could you just stop sharing?
You can stop sharing now, Kaya.
If I only had the tool, I would.
Yes,
Now you have stopped sharing. Perfect. Thank you. We will see. I would like to introduce our next speaker here. I think we have some of the questions by the end of the session here, but it's quite impressive to hear, Kaya, on how well you have been working from an international perspective. It's quite amazing to see how we are bringing us together and how we share information and so on. And I especially like the way also that you focus on international exchange also for the teachers. I think that's a very good approach. It's not only the students, but we should, all the old people like me also should go around the world and learn from others. So with that, I would like to introduce our next speaker. That is the previous president of EFMI, and I would like to say, Katrin, that we have become a little bit of friends, you and I. We have been doing some very interesting conferences between Europe and China, and Katrin has been really a role model for me on understanding how to engage people to share their knowledge. And now in her position also in HL7, she will contribute a lot for all of us to even have easier access to share in a structured way, both with the standard of HL7, also with the application of FIRE. So we are very interesting to hear and learn about your initiative to support the digital transformation. Please, Katrin, the floor is yours.
But Professor
Thank you.
Could you please take over the question?
Yes, I'll take that. So,
Thank you so much.
it is a great pleasure for me to be here and also represent essentially the transition of going back to my core profession of being the Secretary General of HL7 Europe. The last 2 years have been extremely into EFMI as the president, and listening to Lars, who actually said that he said that education is the glue that supports the transformation. This is where my starting point will be. And I will try to leverage these two roles, the role of the Secretary General in HL7 Europe and past president in EFMI. Also impressed by the presentation of Kaya, and actually realizing how important EFMI is in leveraging the needs of Europe with the international scene. So to that point, before I start my presentation, I would like to address the very important question that a colleague asked. And this is actually the question that drives us in the leadership of EFMI, but also in HL7. The question was, I am the QA lead in this digital health firm. What are the certifications that I need to take? And you really saw in Kaya's presentation the importance of not only addressing master's degrees and PhDs, but also vocational training. So what I would like to answer on behalf of EFMI is that it is the imperative for us as the community of medical informatics in Europe to actually answer this question. We are in the beginning, and this is part also of the transformation as we are looking into skilling, reskilling, and developing the workforce that addresses not only the global issues like Kaya mentioned, but also the very important national and European requirements. So with that, I would like to also address this question from the perspective of HL7 Europe and the focus on interoperability and data quality. So it's a journey, in essence, just to give you the end of my presentation. All right, so let me start. HL7 Europe. What is HL7 Europe? For those of you that do not know us, HL7 Europe is the European office of HL7, which was formed in 1986 with the intent to create a world where everyone can securely access and use the right health data when and where they are needed. And driven by this vision, a number of different standards have been developed, and some of them were very, very successful. HL7 version 2 in the beginning, it's still in the 90s, is still omnipresent in many hospitals, connecting the laboratories to the electronic record systems of the hospital. The clinical document architecture drove the way of HTML and the browsers, and is still the de facto way of exchanging clinical documents, at least cross-border in Europe. And then recently, HL7 Fire is taking us by fire, I say sometimes, in the sense that it allows us to define clear interfaces between systems and exchange data. HL7 Europe is addressing the European level, but also the national level. So there are 22 plus affiliates in Europe, and we are working together and with other organizations in the Joint Initiative Council to address topics that are extremely important, like what standards we are using and what terminologies will complement these standards to establish a language that we understand and communicate and exchange health data and process health data, bringing meaningful results. So without further ado, let me give you sort of the end of my presentation. In EFMI and in HL7, we look at the workforce as an enabler of the digitally driven healthcare. And on the one side, EFMI's focus is on excellence, excellence in medical health informatics. And what you saw in the presentation of Kaya is exactly a manifestation of that. We are striving both at the European and at the world level to ensure that the education that is provided in biomedical and health informatics is outstanding. However, workforce demands are changing, and they are changing because of the digital transformation of health and care. And I think it was extremely important, the slide that Lars showed us, where he showed that the personally generated data are taking by far the medical data, which means that the data that we collect and can process about the health of an individual is with the person, not with the health system as much. And that's a major change. Why is it a major change? Because it establishes new roles in digital health, new jobs, new ways of working, and new service delivery models. It's an amazing change, and health leaders and clinical teams need to support this new way of work, this digitally driven healthcare, and understand what needs to be in person and what can be remote, and how we can leverage both modes of working. And linked to that, resource management is new. They need to do demand forecasting, and that can be dynamic. It's not only employees, there are consultants as well. You need to optimize the workforce, taking into account the remote and the in-person work. And essentially, the most important, and where we are actually vested as both as HS7 and EFMI, education, skills, and training. I sometimes remember the idea of the QRD typewriter, and how important it was, and how it was established as a standard because people were educated in that. Now, interoperability and data quality are key to making digital-driven healthcare work. HS7 is an institutional member of EFMI, and in that role, we are keen to collaborate with EFMI in training and reskilling on standards, interoperability, and data quality, because these are the elements that will drive digital-driven healthcare and present optimal results for individuals and the population at large. However, not only these organizations need to collaborate, additional institutional members of EFMI need to engage so that we make the collaboration even stronger. But let me clarify what we are talking about. And I think the European ethical principles for digital health introduced by the French presidency in 2002 are a very encompassing set of principles. The first one, which I love, is base digital health on humanistic values. And here we talk about digital health that complements and optimizes face-to-face healthcare. We talk about individuals that are informed about the benefits and the limits of digital health. And we have individuals that are informed about the functioning of services, and they can customize interactions. And when artificial intelligence is used, we make sure that people understand, trust it, and there is no bias. We also, the principles looked at the data, and data is at the core of interoperability and data quality. And we see 4 principles here, which are about having individuals participate in the frameworks, understand the political and policy framework for digital health and data. We see individuals that are able to retrieve their health data in a common used format, which goes a little bit further than GDPR. And we also see that they know what is happening to their data. This is about data literacy, health data literacy, how the data were used, how they were accessed, and what purpose. And then we have also the 8th principle here, which is about giving individuals the right to grant access to their health data. This is about engaging in health research, being aware of how your data is used, but also making sure that your data are there out there for a good reason. And of course, inclusion is very important. We shouldn't leave nobody behind, because they have low level of literacy because they have disabilities. The digital health services have to be intuitive and easy to use, and individuals need to have access to digital health training, which essentially introduces another role for EFMI. It's not only the technical people that need to be educated or the health professionals, but even the patients. And we have seen that with organizations like the European Patient Forum, who have introduced the academy, the Patient Academy. And then the last one here is that it's good to have digital, but also human communication and the human touch should not be forgotten. Lastly, and I like how this connects to the Green Deal of the European Union, we need to be eco-responsible when we are engaging in digital health. So we need to understand what is the environmental impact. We need to understand how we design the world of digital health, both virtually and physical. And we need to reuse and recycle digital health equipment. And lastly, we have to be worried and aware of the ecological footprint. So these are the principles. And for me, this little page actually says a lot about how education and skills and certification should work. And this is another way to answer the question of our colleague who was seeking the question, what certification do I need as a QA agent in a digital health firm? This page gives you a kind of a roadmap and a landscape of the different things that are encompassed. But let me also focus on the pillars of European health. And I will recognize 3 elements that were also mentioned by Lars. Patient safety and trust, first and foremost. We need to provide updated, reliable, and understandable clinical information when and where needed, for the health of the patient. And that is exactly where standards and data quality come into. We need to provide common trust, and also we need to be careful about where the limits of health data is. Today, I will address 2 points of the many documents that have been released on data. The first one is the European Electronic Health Record Exchange format, and the second is the proposal of the regulation of the European Health Data Space. And I will actually mention those in the context of the collaboration of my organization, HR7 Europe, with my other hat of EFMI, showing to you how important this community of practice is that EFMI is now launching. Lars, could you give me a time, please? How much time I have?
Could I give you?
How much time? How much time I have left?
You have 10 minutes to go, so you have plenty of time.
Thank you. So let me start from the European Health Data Space. The European Health Data Space, as many of you know, is a regulation that is being discussed in the European Parliament and the national governments, and is a quite ambitious document. It talks about empowering individuals for better digital access to their personal health data, free movement of data, so that data can follow people where they go in the EU at least, unleashing the data economy by fostering a genuine single market for digital health services and products. And then setting strict rules for the use of individuals' non-identifiable health data for research, innovation, and policy making. So we can actually, with this regulation, adopt a data-driven mentality, a data-driven decision making, so that we ask, where is the data that will make us make this decision? Where is the data? You are arguing for something that this medicine is good. Where is the data? And everyone, no matter what their educational level, can actually prove or disprove. It's explainable AI. So you see here how important this regulation is. And it is further important because it talks about certification of electronic health records. It talks about how we use health data from apps and medical devices, And it talks also about registries, which are extremely important when we are talking about rare diseases and how to improve treatment. So from the one side, we have better diagnosis and treatment and improved patient safety and continuity of care. And on the other side, we have better health policy and greater opportunities for health research and innovation. So we address individuals, health professionals, policymakers and regulators, but also research and innovators. And the other element that is important for our community is that we are looking connected into the primary and secondary uses of data. The primary concerning the use of data for healthcare provision, access and control of patients over their data, both in borders and across borders. We talk about digital health services, including telehealth and mobile health. And that's for primary use of data, but also for secondary use of data. We talked, as I said earlier, for research and innovation. We talk about better policy making, decision of what medicines to provide, and so on. So EFMI was actually involved in an important project that is actually ended, and HL7 has been there on the part of the specifications together with IHE. And in this project, which is called Cross eHealth, exchanging electronic health records in a common format, we worked to elaborate specifications and logical information models. So in a kind of a lay language, what are the pieces of information that we are using in labs observations and results, in diagnostic imaging observations and results, discharge reports from hospitals, and also patient summaries for rare diseases. And lastly, of course, e-prescription e-dispensation. So these pieces of data are to be exchanged in a commonly understood format with clear terminologies employed. And when we have this infrastructure in place, this would be a great source for the European health data space, because it will allow us to develop very clear, high quality data sets for research. But at the same time, we can also collect data in this common format, the European Electronic Health Record format, from data health services to enable sustainable health systems. So we can have citizens empowered to share our data, their data, as confirming the principles of the French presidency, but also we can think of neighborhoods and communities that are safer and healthier. You see that the eHealth project here aims at building this community of practice. EFMI was a collaborative partner and participated in several events and communicated several of the outcomes of this project. But I think there is a need to take it further so that eHealth, through EFMI as well, confirms these aims. The aim of creating joint studies driven by a global community of innovation for better use of novel technologies and AI. We can see here EFMI working groups engaged. The use of common models, standards, and ICT assets to avert the defragmentation of digital health services and tools. And here is where the specifications of eHealth can be part of the curriculum that are developed for Europe. And then sharing experience on what works and what doesn't, as happens in every community of practice. And lastly, I think it is important that, that this project recognizes the role of digital inclusion, skills, and high quality data. In this project, eHealth, the environment of Art Decor was used. And if you look at Art Decor electronic health record exchange format, as you see in the picture, you can find these specifications and actually be educated on those. These are crosswork between IHE and HL7. A critical aspect that requires training and education, and I think EFMI can help, is the management of change. And this is partly reskilling, but also education and vocational. And I will show you one important example. And of course, this example also goes down into the different types of CDA templates that you want to have common elements. But clearly here, you see the strategy that was adopted there, the idea of a model which is mapped into different standards in an aligned way. And this is how we can support a European infrastructure. But we need training. We need people that are aware of this work. We need people that are able to sustain and maintain it. This can be part of education in master's degrees or in short courses. Another piece of work that I'm really proud of to be engaged with, both with HL7 and EFMI, has been the Fair Health. The Fair for Health was a project where we developed a certification roadmap. We work with the Research and Data Alliance on raising fairness guidelines for health research performing organizations. And now we have created a fair data working group in EFMI. And in fact, in the EU-China conference that Lars mentioned earlier, there was an amazing work by Ronald Cornet on how to make this move forward. So this is about educating hospitals and the managers at hospital and the clear engineers in hospitals how to establish a fair data policy that works, that is safe, that is trustworthy, that can be in the end certified. That's a competence that is of clear importance for the years to come. So what's the future for the
left, Catherine.
I'm almost done. The future of the electronic health record exchange format lays with a project called Expand DH. We hope to link the kit to the work of EFMI. And here we are developing networks of networks. And one of them is Hospitals on Fire. Hospital on Fire is an initiative of HL7, which aims to understand who is using HL7, Fire, how they are using it, and how far ahead they are, and if they need help, to help them. With that purpose, we have the Hospitals on Fire's maturity model developed, and this is a work that also calls for better collaboration with EFMI. So in conclusion, there is an EFMI community of practice, and there is HL7 Fire. We would like to bring them closer, both at the national level, through the national member bodies and institutional members of EFMI, and also the affiliates of HL7. There are several ways to do that. One way is the EFMI Education Working Group that Kaya is managing, as chair. Then there is the accreditation certification program that Professor John Mandas will show us more about. And this is where programs are accredited for European scope. There is the FAIR Working Group for Data, and there is a network of experts that is information that will drive this effort forward and will participate in several initiatives that EFMI is participating. What are the anticipated results and impact? We would like to support the digital transformation of health and care, be the glue that Lars mentioned in his introductory speech. We would like to play a stronger role in basic training, but also reskilling. And I think I understand now from the question also certification. And lastly, contribute to the research and innovation program of the EU. The institutional members of EFMI and HL7 in particular, as key partners of EFMI, can make this a reality. We can formalize this community of practice as a network of experts that can help build the much needed workforce and knowledge capacity to drive the digital transformation and the digitally driven healthcare. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share my thoughts. And I'm looking forward to the discussion. Back to you, Lars.
Thank you. A fantastic presentation, Catherine. You gave us a very good overview of all the initiative, and I also think that the hand you reach out here between HL7 and EFMI is very important for us all to understand that when we work together, it's a higher probability that we will have some success, obviously. So I think the tools are seeming to be in place, the organization of how to do it and so on. So I'm really hopefully and thinking that the European health data space could be a driver actually to increase the value for people or increase the quality of life and so on. And I was listening to Anne Moen yesterday from Washington, and she mentioned the e-patient, and she also combined it then from your Gravity project that E could stand for equipped. And I like the way of thinking of the equipped patient, that we actually give them equipment or tools to take care of their digital health. So with that, once again, thank you, Catherine. You will stay with us for the panel by the end of this session. And I would like now to introduce one of my mentors in understanding how we can work structurally with education.
Professor
So
Lars.
please, John Mantas, talk with us about the AC2 initiative that we have been driving a lot for us.
Professor Lars, can we get a question from our audience here? Can we get a question from our audience here?
I don't see any quotation from the
Hello.
audience.
It is in present. It is a
Yeah.
question in presence. Please.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Good morning, Catherine, Professor. Catherine, it's a pleasure to stay in touch. Fernando Portilla here in the campus. So we are working in Latin America with an initiative named Raxel that is working with near to 9 countries. We have initiatives about interoperability too. So we have two questions specific. One, we are interested on the work of IPS standard. Probably we are interested in make a connectathon probably with this. And this is how is your perception of the IPS standard? How is the adoption, or how is in this direction the initiatives, and how can Raxel could be exchange some type of experience with the initiatives here that you are leading? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. This is a great question. I didn't address this here. We are involved in a number of projects that are taking the IPS forward. One of them, all of them, I guess, are linked to the International Patient Summary.net. Here we try to create a cross-SDO collaboration to move forward these specifications. In terms of actual opportunities for Raxel, a very important project, and maybe we can take it offline, is the Gravitate Health project, where we are looking into how we can increase through the IPS the understanding, the access and adherence to medication information, and particularly medication leaflets. So this is a great way to actually put the International Patient Summary, which includes what are your conditions, what are your allergies, what are your medications, what is against your treatment and brief history, to put into practice so that individuals can make use of this information in different contexts. And some of these contexts have been things like the certificate for COVID, things like the child's health book with the immunizations of a child, and things like the survivorship passport to capture the therapy of a survivor that has gone through chemotherapy and etc. So there are a lot of ways and workflows that introduce the IPS, and the message there is something that I included in my presentation today. It's how do you make data-driven decisions? how do you engage with data in your everyday life? I think this is the key, and I am sure that we can find ways to collaborate between the MyHealth.eu and Raxel. Please reach out to me to see concrete ways to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And excuses, it's always difficult with these hybrid meetings to see what is happening on the other side of the cameras that we can't see. So back then to you, John, if you are available for us now to talk a little bit more about the AC2 initiative from EFMI and that you have been driving so hard during the last years.
Hello, Lars. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, and hopefully we will see it in presentation mode very soon.
I hope so, but I have the same problem with Kaya, I think. Let me try. Yep, okay. Hello, hello, good morning. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank our hosts, the colleagues from Germany, Georgi, and his team for the excellent initiative for this conference. I think it's a very important one. I think it's close to the heart of Georgi. This whole idea of DigiHealth conference. It runs annually now, and I believe it's a very important initiative for not only for his institution but also for Germany and for Europe. We believe that he has to continue this process. And of course, he has to join us in the accreditation process as well. Thank you, Georgi, for this event. Second, I would like to thank Lars for his excellent introduction, his kind words, and also for bringing this team of EFMI into the scene of this conference. We are for many years in EFMI. We are involved in many initiatives, but we are lacking a way of disseminating what we are doing in EFMI. And what we are doing now, it's a success of Lars for bringing this team together, and for also Georgi that hosting this event for EFMI. So thank you both for that. I would like, yes, Georgi, you want to say something or? Okay, thank you. I would like to thank also Catherine, because as president of EFMI, he has taken so many initiatives to disseminate the initiatives of EFMI, but also to bring new ideas, innovative ideas into EFMI, making EFMI known in Europe, and also in the platforms and forums across European Union initiatives. That's very important. We are participating now in many European projects, and what we are doing in EFMI is materialized in deliverables and outcomes that can be measured, and a lot of people, institutions, and colleagues, professionals are participating in this. I'd like to thank also Kaya, our colleague, and for many years working together in the field of education, for taking the initiatives of in education, and also taking the risk of accrediting her own institution during the process of EMEA. And I know it's always a good thing to have this accreditation process, because we are learning a lot, and we'll see in the presentation later on how you can benefit through accreditation process. So I'm coming back to the education. Education is, as you know, is always in my heart. I've dedicated for many years in education, but also I started from standards. Maybe Catherine doesn't know that, but I was in the standardization process 35 years ago when we developed, co-established CENTIS 251 with famous colleagues at that time. And always I've had a question, how this important topic, the standards, why is not included in curriculum? Why is not incorporated into the medical schools, nursing schools, and the healthcare professionals are not aware of the standards. So in the process of so many years, we started to include everything that's related to the needs of healthcare professionals, and not only those, what is needed in the curricula. And then we tried to establish curricula developed in medical informatics, nursing informatics in Europe, that has taken some initiatives, and now they are implemented across Europe in in many schools and institutions. But what is the quality of these programs? So the question how to measure the quality is coming through this process of accreditation. So I would like just a minute because it's taking a lot of speed. So the EFMI has initiated some 6 years ago an initiative that's called the AC2, and it is from the name of accreditation and certification. And there is a committee that is monitoring this, that has been appointed by EFMI to take care of these both processes. Accreditation is about evaluation of programs, and certification is about healthcare professionals or professionals' certification of their knowledge in the field of biomedical and health informatics. So for the first step, we have implemented the accreditation process, which is a diligent evaluation and monitoring by a peer review process. So we as healthcare professionals, as professionals in the field of biomedical informatics, we're evaluating colleagues' initiatives and programs, assuring that the educational programs and institutions meet the academic standards and the operational integrity and quality. Maybe we have the wish to have a very good program with developing a curriculum, but how we are implementing this curriculum has to be also evaluated. Is the institution acceptable for us in terms of infrastructure and to have enough academic personnel to run this program? So it's not just a curriculum that we are developing that is usually mapping the wishes, what we would like to teach to our students, but how this implementation is evaluated, and we would like to measure the quality of this process. So the EFMI accreditation provides a European added value to the programs. We know in Europe that we have already a process of evaluation of programs through the Ministries of Education or some independent authorities. They are doing the evaluation of all academic programs. But this is more generic. It is not focused 100% to the field that we are wishing to be evaluated, which is biomedical and health informatics. Also in Europe, we have an added quality, which is the mobility of students and the mobility of professors, of teachers. And this program is called Erasmus Plus, or Erasmus before, or Socrates for some time. But this is an initiative more than 30 years now in Europe, and it's a very acceptable, very popular, and I think all the academic institutions have approved it and they are implemented. So how we are doing that in the field of biomedical informatics, this is also very important. So this accreditation is focused on the scientific requirements and international standards in biomedical health informatics. We are referring to the standards because we are going to refer them to the educational recommendations as they have been developed and approved by EMEA. And I'll come back to this bridging over the presentation of Kaya. Therefore, it is complementary to the required national accreditation processes. So we are not taking out the national accreditation. We are just complementary to the national accreditation. We are providing an added value to the whole process of accreditation. This has to be very specific because in other continents, there are different requirements for accreditation. But for Europe, we have the national accreditation, which is, of course, very valid. We have to implement it in any case, but we are introducing also an additional accreditation specifically for the field of biomedical informatics coming out of EFMI. Sorry, I missed the... Okay. Can you see now the presentation? Okay, thank you, Lars. I see your, didn't hear your voice, but I saw your face accepting that you are seeing the next presentation. Now, the basis of accreditation is the international standards of education. These recommendations have been developed for many years. We have the very first recommendations by EMEA very early in 1990, and then we have the first revision of those recommendations in 2010, and then now we have in 2022 the second revision of the recommendations. I was very honored to be leading the task force of the first revision of the recommendations. And always, when you are developing recommendations at the international body, the difficulty is always to provide a consensus, to learn to listen to the views of your colleagues and the experiences and also their wisdom. And this is a very, very difficult process, because then you have to provide a structured document that will be accepted by the EMEA General Assembly and of course by the editors of the journal that is going to be submitted. The second revision in 2022, I was also very honored to be part of the core team, and not only the task force, but the core team that edited the recommendations. Were three members, Jen Bichel from Australia, Sabine Koch from Sweden, and myself. And I can tell you that every week we have a weekly meeting to edit the second revision of the recommendations. It's a very tedious task. And in the last 2 months before the opening of the recommendations, we have some different views coming out of the colleagues, because when the draft documents went to the 28 colleagues, some people have some different visions. So I wanted to accommodate those. And at the last moment, I can tell you, and this is, Kaya knows that also very well, we had this idea of the generalist, the second level of user in the recommendations, and it's very well accepted, very well documented, and it's a new item in the recommendations. But also we saw the recommendations for the first and second revision, but we have to do something else to take it out the European view, because the previous recommendations, the first revision, had a very specific European view, the ECTS view, which was not accepted, but was not realized what is this ECTS in other continents, in America, in Australia, in Africa, in Asia. So what we did, we provided a more generic approach in the tables, as it was shown by Kaya, the percentage approach, instead of specific units, because the Americans have a different kind of credits, the Europeans have the ECTS, other continents do not have this kind of credit system. So we wanted to balance things out. We provided this also. So it is a process that is required. So the consensus process. And the document is passing through the review process. So academic reviewers are also reviewing the document. And now we have the second revision. So the accreditation process from now on will be based on the second revision of the recommendations. So far, it was based on the first revision of the recommendations. We have also another document which is very important, coming from EU, and also the process of Bologna process, and many also other cities that have developed through the EU initiatives documents of very importance and accepted by European Commission. And we are using also the Dublin descriptors for the evaluation criteria. And these Dublin descriptors are for all academic levels, for bachelor's, for master's, for doctoral levels. And in order to provide the process of accreditation, besides the documentation we have from international recommendations and the Dublin descriptors, we have to have 3 members of panel, and we are assigning through the through EFMI, through a panel, through a pool of colleagues with academic qualifications with experience in accreditation, And we are selecting by the EFMI board and the AC2 committee 3 members. And the 3 members are becoming the panel members, which are independently reviewing each program. This is they are following the code of conduct of confidentiality. And from the time they are appointed, they are individuals and not, and they are working independently with ethical background. So the criteria for assessment are based on the following 5 criteria. The initial relevance of the program, the intended learning outcomes, the academic and teaching learning environment, the organization and implementation, and the internal quality assurance and development. So what we mean by each one very fast. And Lars, if I exceed the time, you just raise your hand.
Yeah, 2 minutes left.
Yes, yes. So for the initial relevance, it's very important to understand that it means that the focus of the program, if the focus of the program is related, what is written, what is reflected in the program. The second one is if it is a description of the learning outcomes of the program, what the students are going to learn out of this program. The third one is how this program is structured, what is the teaching capability, and how it is developed in sessions and in the years in implementation. Organization is the infrastructure of the organization and how it's going to be implemented. There are libraries, no libraries, etc. And the fifth criterion is if the program has quality assurance. Questionnaires, the students are active to provide feedback to the program. So these 5 criteria, if are met, then we're receiving an OK by the reviewers. And all these criteria are described in a self-assessment report. I have just an example coming from a program. This is from Austria. And the appointed site visit members had visited the dean of the institution, the head of department, the program director, the faculty, the staff, the students, alumni of the program or related programs if this program is new, stakeholders. They provided individual reports. They provided the panel report as consensus. Then the AC2 committee received this report and approved it or corrected. And then this corrected or approved report has been approved by the institution itself, is going to the EFMI board for endorsement. And of course, when the board is endorsing the accreditation, then a certificate is issued for this program, and the program is considered as accredited by EFMI AC2. And this is the logo that can be bared by the institution and can be also uploaded to the website of the program. So in conclusion, Lars, so the quality of education, as we have realized, is of paramount importance. It's not only what we think that when we design a program, but we have to make sure that the quality we provide to the students is of high standards. The accreditation procedure ensures this adequate knowledge and skills and monitoring from the very beginning. And I say from the very beginning because the accreditation can be from the beginning of the program. When they conceptualize the program, there is a design of the program, then the institution can also apply for accrediting this program before implementation. And this is, I think, is even better because they can receive feedback from the very beginning from the colleagues of the Site 5 Visit Panel and the EFMI AC2 Committee. It develops a quality pathway towards capacity building of professionals. And of course, it means that the monitoring for the quality of education and evaluation through an objective accreditation. The whole process is very formal, it's very collegiate, it's peer review process, but it's also a professional process. And EFMI is proud that he has accredited programs already through the EFMI AC2 initiative. Thank you very much, and I will be happy to answer questions. If somebody would like to send clarification email to my address, john.mantas@outlook.com, I will be happy to answer, and I'm happy to send them the template of the self-assessment report if they would like to apply. I call the institutional members, Lars, to apply for the accreditation, But not only this, but whoever now is in the audience as director of the program is very welcome to ask us as EFMI and ask me if they like, and also to apply for accreditation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. It's always a pleasure to take part of your wise wisdom. It's a question in the QA chat that you can look at, and we will answer it by the end of this session. So you can prepare a little bit about some real-time live tips here. But with that said, I would like to introduce our last speaker on this session. That is Judy Croxall. That we met perhaps in Cardiff, but we haven't really been talking more than over the internet. But I'm happy that she will share some thinking about the European and international collaboration and shared learning, why it's so crucial at the time. So please, Judy, the floor is yours.
Can you see my slides okay?
Not yet, we just see the camera from you.
Oh, just a moment.
I used to say it's not so easy to share.
No, I didn't. I've been practicing as well. Just one moment.
Now something is happening. We can see it not in presentation mode.
No?
Now we see the preview mode. So if you hit up there somewhere, you know. Yep.
Yep.
Oh, perfect. You have been training good. Please, Judy.
So thank you, everyone. So first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. So my name is Dr. Jodie Croxall. I'm an associate professor at the University of Wales Trinity St David in Wales in the United Kingdom. And I did meet some of you in the conference in Cardiff. So when I begin my talk, I might turn my camera off because my internet is dropping and I think it works better without the camera, if that's okay. So a little bit about my background before we begin, so you know where I am coming from. So before an academic career, I worked in the health and care sector in hospitals and community settings, and I later went back to study. So I've worked my way up through the ranks, and I've taught on various programs in medical schools and nursing programs, health informatics, and I've also led and designed curriculum. So I developed and designed a new undergraduate program for medical school. So I'm all too aware of some of the challenges in trying to incorporate health informatics curricula into an already busy professional curricula, and some of the fightbacks you get on doing so, and the resistance from institutions and from students themselves often. So in my current role, I am an academic director, so this means I am in charge of a new discipline in a new institution. So the new discipline is digital health and care. And as part of my role, I will be developing new courses from undergraduate to postgraduate to doctoral programs, and also online shorter courses such as micro-credentials, all with the aim of upskilling the digital health and care workforce of the future. And again, a little bit more. So prior to academic work, I was also a health data analyst. So I worked as data linkage, you know, in the big data sets in UK, so HDR UK and things like that. So that's a bit about me. So I'm going to turn my camera off now. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. There. So in this session today then, we're going to talk about the importance of collaboration and shared learning in digital health and care. So I'm really mindful that this is a really broad topic area. And so in order to structure my presentation today, I'm going to center my discussions around the following broad areas. So first of all, I'm going to locate the context in the global health crisis as key drivers in the move towards digitalized health and care. Then we're going to look very briefly at the ways in which the COVID-19 pandemic did accelerate the transition into digital health and the legacy this has meant for digital health and care. And underpinning all of this has been collaboration and shared learning, which I hope you'll see are crucial for enabling continued developments in digital health and care. So we're going to end by examining some of the opportunities and challenges posed for digital health in a post-COVID world. So after listening to the presentations this morning, I'm really mindful that many of the topics that I will be discussing have already been discussed today. So I think I've pulled the short straw here, being last on today. But as Professor Lars emphasized earlier, repetition is key. So I do think that my talk will provide a whistle-stop tour of the story so far, the story of the development of digital health and care, and will provide a useful summary perhaps of some of the issues raised so far and what we need to take on going forward. So before I begin then, I would like to say a quick note on the terminology used. So I'm sure, as you're all too well aware, there are a wide range of terminology used when discussing digital health and care. So we've got health informatics, medical informatics, health and care informatics, all used often interchangeably, and many more. So, and these are often reflected in the talks that you've heard today, aren't they? So in my presentation, I'm going to be using the term posed by the European Commission, so digital health and care, and there's a definition there. But I think it's a lot of depending on your discipline and where you've come from, isn't it? But I thought it would be apt to use the word digital health and care, given the focus of this conference today. So let's begin with the story so far. So those of you who have visited Wales, you will know that we are natural storytellers. Everything is told through the medium of story. So this talk is going to be no different. So the story of the global health crisis in a nutshell then. So while we've always had major issues concerning health and social care, so ever since the mass inception of nationalised health services across Europe in the post-war period, today they're really at the forefront of everyone's attention in Europe and across the globe. So every day it seems that there are reports of the so-called health crisis in the media by national governments and organisations, all alluding to this critical point that we're at the moment. And these are at various levels, aren't they? They're at local, national and international levels. So whatever guides they take, health services are growing increasing pressures as a result of many, many different factors. So we're all too aware of the demographic changes caused by population aging, population growth, but also changes in family structures and, you know, the erosion of traditional sources of support and so on. We're hearing a lot more, especially after COVID, about the health inequalities. So again, this has been a long-standing problem, but I think it's been emphasized more during COVID. You know, huge inequalities of health outcomes, you know, in local areas, but between areas as well at local, national and international scales. We've also seen some challenges posed by, you know, the increased advancement of medical science and technology. So as treatments become more and more complex, patients are living longer with certain conditions such as cancer, diabetes, and so on, and often requiring more complex treatment and a multiple range of healthcare providers. So you could say we're a victim of our own success. So the more we do, the more there is for us to do. So many people refer to this as the demographic time bomb at the moment, aren't they? So on top of all this, we've got mass workforce shortages. So declining numbers of experienced healthcare professionals, fewer people entering the profession. And again, this has been alluded to already. During COVID, we saw a mass exodus in many countries of healthcare professionals from the profession. So we've got huge issues with recruiting and retaining staff. And many countries, such as my own, have critical healthcare workforce shortages. So with all of these issues, we've got huge constraints on resources. So that's resources in terms of economic resources, but also in terms of the human capital as well, coupled with rising expectations of what we as people expect from our health service and, escalating demands. So you could say, it's that crisis point, and this is what we mean by the healthcare crisis. So increasingly, we've looked for new ways of changing. We need a radical change. And there's a growing consensus that we must do more to help citizens and people look after their own health and well-being. There's a change needed to better reflect the way that health and care services are organised, accessed and delivered today. So a potential solution. So I think since the first ever use of computers and technologies, these have been hailed as offering a potential solution to the health crisis. And this can be traced as early as, the late 1940s and 50s. And most of you will be aware of Gustav Wagner in Germany, who pioneered, the first ever program in health informatics. And this held many a good promise for healthcare of the future. So always centered around improved quality, safety, efficiency of care, coordination of care, cost savings, and so on. So in the early days of this new and burgeoning profession, the early movers and shakers in the field tended to learn their skills on the job. However, as technology advanced and as the need developed, it soon became recognized that there was a need for more formal education and training. And during the 1960s, 70s and 80s across Europe, we saw a mass expansion of specialized university departments in health and medical informatics and training programs. We also saw the development of health informatics research units in the UK and in the USA as well. So a key part to all of this has been the professionalization of the discipline, whatever that may be called, health informatics or medical informatics. So, and especially since the 1970s, two of the most prominent institutions or professional bodies have been the International Medical Informatics Association and EFMI, which we're in the session of today. So EFMI is now 46 years old. I only know that because it was the same year as my birth. But whatever these professionalizations and organizations try to do, it's all centered around advancing collaboration and sharing learning within this field. And they've played a really key role in shaping policy and practice, across Europe, but beyond. So again, an emphasis on working with the sector, working with professionals, working with healthcare providers and practitioners in a bid to have collaboration, shared learning. So, and it's led to many, useful advancements as well. So we've seen the work earlier of Catherine, who alluded to the community of practice currently in EFMI, which is much needed, and the previous talk by Professor John Mantas, really useful to see, the work done on accreditation and especially the 3-cycle system. There's much need for school children all the way through to doctorates to be educated and trained. So, and I agreed wholeheartedly with the work of Kaya, who spoke about the recommendations and the need for interdisciplinary working between users, generalists and specialists as well. So it's really positive to see all of these changes currently happening. However, traditionally as a discipline, I think health informatics has received quite a lot of criticism, and I think because it's sometimes accused of lacking in a clear identity. So especially those working in the field, sometimes they don't identify themselves as being a health informatician or a health informatician practitioner. And traditionally it's been seen as a second career, something you progress on until, not something you enter as a career in your own right. So, and I think for these reasons, it's often criticised as being quite siloed. So these new advancements that we've heard about today seem really welcomed, and they open a way of integrating and promoting this integrated working and interdisciplinary nature that is needed to move forward. So over the past 20 years or so, we've seen a change in language, and I think this is due in part to the increased digitalization of healthcare. So as I said in the beginning, the words digital health and care used more prominently now. I think they're more digestible by the general public. They kind of relate to it a bit more. But this does encompass the health informatics and medical informatics. So chronologically, I think since at least the year 2000, we start to see healthcare leaders across the world really starting to take it seriously and recognizing the potential for technology in healthcare, in diagnosis, in records, in information sharing and care coordination. So we saw a big impetus for change in the early 2000s. In the UK, we saw a number of national programs. So for example, in 2002, we saw the National Programme for IT, and this was a really revolutionary policy which aimed to implement a top-down digitalisation of the NHS in the UK. So, however, there's been winners and losers, and some have been more successful than others. And unfortunately, the national programme in England was deemed one of the largest civil IT programme failures, and it was officially dismantled. So some of the key messages to come out of this was that there was a lack of trust by end users. Doctors appeared to lack a lot of trust in it, and it didn't seem to have any impact on patient safety. And I think a lot of this was because there was no evaluation mechanism inbuilt in it. So I think key messages from that was, the need for user engagement, and also the need for managed change approaches, and also what's needed in order to scale up projects such as these and implementation. So across the ocean to our sisters in America, we also saw a similar program. So many of you would have heard this, the Health Information and Technology for Economic and Clinical Health Act, so the HITECH Act in 2009. So, and this was more successful. So, but this included financial incentives for physicians, hospitals, care centres and so on to adopt electronic health records and so on. So again, there were fines if people did not do so. So it was a mandatory piece of legislation. And while it was heavily criticised at the time, it did work. So the mandatory nature and the fear of having a fine for not doing so did lead to a huge uptake in the adoption. So in just 6 years, over 75% of healthcare institutions adopted it. So, and we saw other key international developments that have aided the transition to health and care. So I won't go over it here, you all know, but we saw the HL7 and the FIRE development as well. So, and these have been revolutionary and really aided cooperation and collaboration between people at local, national and international stages. So, as the years have gone on, we've seen far more interest in digital health technologies, and we've seen far more development and innovation. So we've moved away from just looking at electronic versions of people's health records to whole systems approaches, telehealth, telemedicine, precision medicine, and so on. we've moved into new ways of effective workforce modelling, within and beyond institutions. So we've also seen the rapid shift in the use of digital health and technology to facilitate more individualized and self-management of healthcare. And again, today, most of us are using wearables, mobile apps, and so on to support and take control of our own health and well-being. So you could say up until 2019, not that long ago, while digital technologies were becoming integral to daily life, the world's population had never been so interconnected. There were issues with this as well. So the uptake of digital health was uneven across the board in many cases. So some areas worked better than others. So different picture across the globe. So, and often it was thwarted by many issues, such as those reported in this diagram here by the World Health Organization Europe in 2019. So again, some of these issues have already been discussed today, but problems with scale up and governance, problems with engaging the healthcare workforce in terms of education and training, the big concerns over privacy and security, not helped by the mass media reports of some big breaches of Google, Amazon, and others. But overall, issues with cost, trust, interoperability, and so on. So you could say that while a move towards digital health has been happening for years, and despite the immense scope for the use of digital health solutions, until 2019, progress could be uneven and slow across the world. So there wasn't yet widespread practice as we would like. So this all changed with COVID. So I know we're all sick of using the example of COVID, but I think it's really important in the context of this talk today. So COVID really was a disruptor to existing systems. So the pace of change really did pick up during the COVID pandemic. So we saw the accelerated use of digital technology in health and care and massive disruptions within healthcare. And these disruptions were both directly as a result of the outbreak of COVID, but indirectly as well due to the different public measures introduced to mitigate against transmission. So almost overnight, organizations, institutions, health companies had to rapidly reorganize and change their systems, scale up and expand the application of digital innovations. And as we're aware, I won't go through this all, but digital health did play an invaluable role in our response to the pandemic. So, in terms of the diagnosis and treatment using teleconferencing, remote monitoring, and so on, to the monitoring and surveillance by epidemiologists and others for the spread of the disease itself and the containment of it. It also played a key role in information and communication, and especially with the promotion or the negating of I'm back on. It came up for me to go back on. Of misinformation by the media in many cases. So all in all, you could say that COVID-19 did showcase what we could do if we had to. If we don't have too much time to sit and think about it, if we are thrown into an emergency situation, this is what we can do. So, and this again was only possible through collaboration and shared learning at an unprecedented scale. So during this time, we saw scientists, academics, public health, epidemiologists from across the world really doing true collaborative work and learning off each other to get the job done. So I think COVID then has been a wake-up call. So not that anyone would wish there to have been the pandemic and all of the devastation, but on a positive note, it has altered and given a much needed boost to digital health and care, to health informatics, to medical informatics. So we've moved away from digital health and care tools being viewed as, just a potential opportunity. Maybe we could one day, to becoming an immediate necessity, and we could do it. It highlighted the need for investment in digital infrastructure, the investment in education, training and skills, but also investment in order to make this whole thing sustainable for now and for the future generations. So that's one positive to take away from the pandemic. So I really do think the time is now for digital health and care. So the time is now for us as a global community to accelerate this transition. So we need to take advantage of the strategies and the momentum, needed if we're going to continue this further. So, and again, underpinning all of this will be the continued collaboration and shared learning. So we can't go back to working in our own little silos, doing our own thing. There are a number of global policy frameworks now to enable us and to help us to work together to achieve common goals. So, for example, I've put there the Global Strategy on Digital Health provides a really useful framework, and there are many, many others. So last month in September, we saw the WHO Regional Committee approving a resolution recognising the critical role for digital health and care. So I think we need to work together to use and develop best practice for that we have learned and that we did achieve during the 3 years of the pandemic. So like I say, to build on this momentum, I think you could say that we have been through a global pilot study. What we can do if we try. We've all worked together, we've tested something out, and now is the time. Like I said, we need to continue collaboration. As Professor John Mantra said, consensus is key as well. We need to listen and learn from each other at a global scale. So in the post-COVID world, we need to bring this together and harness this enthusiasm for digital change through these methods. So we should take heed of the lessons learned, but also be mindful of lessons to be learned as we progress into the digital era. One thing is for certain, things will never be the same again. So we need to take this opportunity now to seize the moment.
I think we have 1 minute left.
Okay, it won't be a minute, I'm nearly done. So I'll skip through this one. So this was about collaboration and shared learning. I've said most of this anyway. So I think I wanted to end with some of the opportunities and challenges posed by this. And I think because there are so many stakeholders involved, there are local, national, international levels, there's citizens, patients, workforce, policymakers, organizations, institutions, it's multi-layered. So it really needs to take a strategic approach. We all need to define common goals and also perhaps prioritize what are we going to do first. We're not going to do everything at once. So what do we think is the most important? So there are many opportunities, especially as the sessions related to for interdisciplinary education and training, and now remote learning, digital tools are enabling us to work together far more easily. So, but also that comes with a challenge as well, doesn't it? So again, will we go back to working in our silos, the nurse and informaticians working alone, the medics working alone, the analysts working alone? And I think from working in those teams myself, that does tend to naturally happen. So do we need to find ways of integrating those teams and seeing the value and to removing the hierarchy, really, people need to be working together and working as equals as well. And again, education and practice is going to be key going forward, but what will that mean for the many different layers? So we need to be educating the general public, practitioners, government, everyone, so again, that poses significant challenges for the education. Who needs to know what at what level, and how will we maintain the momentum? So, and until I think these kinds of things are resolved, user acceptance will always be a challenge. So people are less likely to accept what they don't know and what they don't seem to be relevant to them. So in my closing comments, sorry, I rushed that bit. I wanted to just draw attention to one of the plenary talks this morning. So, and there was a global call for action. So a digital health and care for all by 2018. None of this will happen without continued collaboration and shared learning. But I think we do need to figure out what we're going to do first and prioritize key areas of activities, or we'll be trying to do too much of everything and too little of something in particular. So the key message is European international collaboration and learning is really crucial at this time, or we will lose the progress that we've gained. So thank you very much for listening. Okay.
Thank you, Judy. What a great way of ending this session. I think you framed it very well. And as you said, repetition is the mother of knowledge. So it was really perfect to hear you again. We had some questions in the chat, and I would ask the panelists to answer perhaps by writing, because we should be careful of the time. So I think I will just end to say to Professor Georgi Chalitan, what a wonderful opportunity to participate in Digital Health Day 2022 again from EFMI side. Hopefully we can do this together again. You are starting to be a real knowledge sharing in the whole of Europe. So thank you so much from EFMI to Deggendorf Institute of Technology and your team, Professor Georgi. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lars. Thank you for building such a wonderful session. I thank you personally as our co-host, as a host of the session. I thank our dear colleagues, Catherine, John, Kaya, Jordi. Thank you for your wonderful, very informative talks. And thank you for being with us, EFMI, with the European campus Rottal-Inn of Deggendorf Institute of Technology, a proud institutional member of the European Federation for Medical Informatics. I'm sure we will continue in the same way. I'm very much looking forward to welcoming, hopefully next time, colleagues from EFMI on site here in Pfarrkirchen, and it is definitely becoming an excellent tradition that I hope we will sustain and continue. Thank you very much. On that, we are closing for now our plenary track. We're going for a break, 1 hour long break, to be back at exactly 2 p.m. Central European time for continuation of our plenary with the afternoon plenary and then the panel discussion. I thank again all our audiences, all participants on site and online, and see you in 1 hour. Thank you.